Well, good morning, friends, and welcome to Wake Up in the Word. Thanks for joining me on a Friday. We're wrapping up a week, and let's just go completely wild today. We'll open up a can of worms and see what we do with it. Maybe we'll just go fishing. Well, let's head over to Revelation chapter 9, where yesterday we saw the fifth trumpet sound and the release of something that John described as locusts upon the earth. We saw folks, and many say this, recognizing that these are not actual locusts, there's something else. They have different characteristics, which makes you understand they're not real locusts. This is just the best word John had to describe what he saw. So he must have seen these in the hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions. They were covering the sky, and they made some interesting noises, had an interesting appearance. That's where we are in today's lesson as we start with verse number 7 in chapter 9 with a description of these locusts that have come from the abyss, the bottomless pit. And we'll talk about where this might actually be on planet Earth. Hang on. The appearance of the locusts, he writes, was like horses equipped for battle. Something like gold crowns was on their head, and their faces were like men's faces. They had hair like women's hair. Their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had chests like iron breastplates. The sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers like scorpions, so that with their tails they had the power to harm people for 5 months. Now let's stop right there and talk about these creatures for just a moment. What is John seeing? Is he seeing, as many have proposed, demons that look like some kind of Marvel cartoon characters, something out of Transformers perhaps? I don't know, and there just are oodles of them. They've been released out of a bottomless pit, and who knows what these characters look like? Or was John just doing the best he could to describe this warfare that's been unleashed on humanity? Yeah, and some folks want to laugh when you say perhaps he saw giant flights of attack helicopters or attack drones, whatever it might be, weapons of modern warfare. How would he have described such things in the language of a first century man? We don't know what he saw, not yet, and we won't know until it happens, but I think that the latter explanation is a whole lot better than some kind of crazy-looking, goofy creatures. Somebody said, but these we know are demonically controlled. We understand that from the next verses. Yes, but guess what? Demons have controlled people for a long time in different circumstances, and even in the fulfillment of prophecy, God uses human instruments most all of the time to fulfill those prophecies. If you go back through history, you're going to see this as the pattern. It's continued for all time. So could we be seeing the same thing happening here? Well, whatever these locusts that John describes are, whether they are, and I again lean toward this latter explanation that he's looking at some modern weapons of warfare, and I even lean toward the fact that drones have to be involved in this, manufactured by the millions. They would look like a swarm of locusts. We've even had videos put out of exactly what that would look like and sound like, and that sounds like what John is describing. But what's the purpose behind this? Why are they suddenly being unleashed? And remember, all the eyes of prophecy are from Jerusalem. So this is describing the kind of warfare that's going on, spreading out from the Middle East all into the surrounding areas, perhaps for thousands of miles. No, it won't take place in 100% of the planet, probably. It's going to be localized to some degree upon 3 continents. But yet the effects of it will be felt all around the world. And so you may see some of these, whether they're military vehicles or whether they are some kind of actual demonic creatures, they'll be seen around the world. So what are we having here? They have power to harm people, it says, for 5 months. The second time 5 months has been listed. So here at this point of the tribulation period, we're looking at a wartime event. something that goes on for about 5 months, and it's devastating. Now, who's the big boss here? Well, it says in verse 11, they had as their king the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he has the name Apollyon. Now, who is Abaddon? Who is Apollyon? Again, you've got a name in Hebrew and a name in Greek. It's not the first time we see this in the Bible. In fact, 7 times in the Bible you're going to see Abaddon. And where do we find him? You find him in the Psalms mentioned, and you even find him in the oldest book in the Bible, which is the book of Job. In Job chapter 26, it talks about how the departed spirits tremble beneath the waters and all that inhabit them, in chapter 26, verse 5. And then in verse 6, it says, Sheol is naked before God, and Abaddon has no covering. So here we are talking about Abaddon as if it's an actual place, or is it an actual person? Well, we see it again in Job chapter 28, verse 22. It begins by saying in verse 21 before it, it's hidden from the eyes, speaking of wisdom, it's hidden from the eyes of every living thing and concealed from the birds of the sky. But hang on, Abaddon and death say, we have heard news of it with our ears. So here is Abaddon and death with some kind of conscious knowledge about wisdom. We've at least heard of it. Who is Abaddon? Is it just a place or is it a person? Well, in both the Greek and the Hebrew, this word means destroyer. Now, hang on to that. It means destroyer. So that's why some say, Evans and some others say, this is literally just another description for Satan. He's really now ready to go out and lead his hordes against all of humanity. He's fighting against God himself. And so that we're literally talking about another name for the devil. Or this is one of his chief agents, one that has been kept in chains. You'll find that word Tartarus to refer to, it's in the English translated hell one time in the New Testament, as a place where angels were kept until the day of judgment. But somehow this place has been opened up, and perhaps we're talking about the chief demon of this part of the underworld, perhaps being one of Satan's cohorts. So whether it's Satan himself or one of his chiefs, you have Abaddon and Apollyon, same person, being released upon humanity. And this is the person that's in charge of all these terrible events that are taking place. Well, one of the things that's scary is when you look at how this name in history, in ancient history, goes back, yes, like to Job, the oldest book in the Bible. And in the ancients, there was a place in Europe where it was said to be the home of the gate to the abyss. It's very close to something called the Hadron Super Collider in CERN, Switzerland. Yeah, believe it or not, the abyss might just be opened right there. Now, there have been oodles of books written about this. Just go check it out for the fun of it and see what you think. Because as we are trying to, with the Hadron Super Collider, make things happen, perhaps opening holes up into new dimensions, might have something to do with this passage. Don't know if it does or not, but I do know this. When the tunnel was opened for this 30-something mile deep railroad to go under the mountains to get to this particle accelerator, the dedication service for that thing that happened in 2016 was an amazing event. I've seen film of it where the folks, and keep in mind, these are scientists. These are supposed to be smart people. In the front of this area is already a giant statue of Shiva. We would consider Shiva a demon, but Shiva is a Hindu deity who is, guess what? The destroyer. Oh, hang on. Are we connecting some dots here? So you've got this super collider there. These scientists have in front of it a statue of the destroyer, and at the dedication ceremony, out comes this character dressed like a demon with a goat's head on, who goes and sits on a throne, and these people are performing imaginary homosexual sex acts in front of this demon in worship. And this is part of the play that they put on to dedicate this place. Are you kidding me? Could the Bible be somehow being fulfilled right in front of our eyes as we're getting ready for a new horde of demons to be unleashed upon the world? Or are some of them already here? Because as you look at how crazy people have become in these last days, you have to say, what's going on? Is this something deeper in a spiritual sense than anything we've ever seen before? Well, I hope we're not looking at this event, but one day this one is going to be the icing on the cake for when the demons, unleashed during the tribulation period, cause a terrible time of destruction and damage. All the more reason to make sure Jesus Christ is Lord of your life and you know where you're going. God bless you. We'll see you next time as we wake up in God's Word.